Picture yourself settling into the most comfortable place you know. Maybe it's your bed with its familiar softness cradling you, or perhaps a favorite chair where you've spent countless quiet moments. The light around you is dim and gentle, creating soft shadows that seem to breathe with the rhythm of evening. Outside, the world continues its endless motion, but here, in this space, time moves differently. It flows like honey, thick and slow, inviting you to simply exist without demand or expectation. As your breathing naturally deepens and slows, feel how your body begins to release the accumulated tension of the day, muscle by muscle, breath by breath. This moment belongs entirely to you, a sanctuary carved from the noise of existence, where the only voice that matters is the quiet whisper of your own thoughts beginning to settle like snowflakes finding their place on winter ground. Tonight, we explore something profound and unexpected, something that goes against much of what our hyper-connected world tells us we need. We're going to discover the surprising, scientifically backed benefits of being alone. The historical perspective on solitude. Throughout the vast expanse of human history, the experience of being alone has held a complex and often contradictory place in how we understand ourselves and our world. Long before smartphones buzzed with notifications and social media connected us to thousands of acquaintances, philosophers, mystics, and thinkers wrestled with the meaning and value of solitude. Their insights, passed down through millennia, reveal something fascinating about the human relationship with aloneness, something that speaks to both our deepest fears and our highest aspirations. In ancient Greece, where Western philosophy took its earliest recognizable forms, thinkers held divergent views on the value of being alone. Aristotle, whose ideas shaped centuries of thought, proclaimed that humans were fundamentally social creatures, zoon politikan, political animals whose very essence required community and civic engagement. To Aristotle, the person who lived entirely alone was either a beast incapable of civilization or a god transcending human needs. This perspective embedded itself deeply in Western consciousness, creating a cultural assumption that solitude represented either deficiency or superhuman achievement, never simply a natural human state worthy of embrace. Yet even in Aristotle's time, alternative voices spoke of solitude's virtues. The Stoic philosophers, who emerged in the centuries following Aristotle, saw periods of withdrawal as essential for cultivating virtue and wisdom. They understood that the marketplace of ideas and the forum of public life, while valuable, could also corrupt and distract. In quietness, away from the pressures of social conformity and the seductions of popular opinion, a person might discover their authentic nature and true values. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus observed that if a person cannot be content in their own company, the odds are they will not be happy around others either. This wasn't a rejection of social life, but rather a recognition that self-sufficiency formed the foundation for genuine connection. As centuries passed and Christianity spread across Europe, religious traditions added new dimensions to the understanding of solitude. The desert fathers and mothers of early Christianity, those hardy souls who retreated to the harsh wilderness of Egypt, Syria, and Palestine, saw isolation as a path to divine encounter. Saint John of the Cross, the Spanish mystic and poet who lived in the 1500s, reported experiences of profound communion with the divine during his periods of solitary contemplation. He wrote of how the pure spirit does not concern itself with the regard of others or human respect, but communes inwardly with the sacred in solitude and delightful tranquility, for the knowledge of the transcendent is received in divine silence. This wasn't escape from reality, but rather engagement with what these mystics considered the deepest reality of all. The tradition of solitary spiritual seeking appeared across cultures and faiths. Buddha, whose teachings would eventually reach hundreds of millions, found his enlightenment after years of solitary meditation and contemplation. Moses ascended Mount Sinai alone to receive divine instruction. Muhammad retreated to the cave of Hira for periods of isolated reflection before receiving his revelations. Jesus spent 40 days and nights wrestling with spiritual questions in the wilderness. Lao Tzu, the perhaps mythical founder of Taoism, emphasized the value of withdrawal from the world's clamor to discover the Tao, the way of natural harmony. These figures, foundational to the world's major religious traditions, all shared a recognition that profound truth often revealed itself not in crowds and conversation, but in the silence of solitude. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, writing in the late 1800s from his often lonely perch in the Swiss mountains, made solitude central to his philosophical project. He saw time alone not as deprivation but as necessary protection for the soul and mind. Nietzsche wrote with characteristic intensity that when he found himself among the many, he lived as the many did and did not think as he really thought. After spending time in crowds and conforming to social expectations, it seemed to him that others wanted to banish him from himself and rob him of his very soul. He needed the metaphorical desert, he explained, to grow good again. For Nietzsche, solitude wasn't antisocial behavior but rather the prerequisite for genuine individuality and authentic thought. He called himself the Hermit of Sils Maria, referring to the Swiss town where he spent his summers writing in relative isolation, and he described those capable of benefiting from solitude as sworn friends of aloneness. Nietzsche also recognized solitude's connection to freedom and resistance against oppression. He observed that wherever tyranny existed, the solitary philosopher had been hated, because philosophy offered an asylum into which no tyranny could force its way, the inward cave, the labyrinth of the heart. This political dimension of solitude mattered greatly. Hannah Arendt, the political theorist who witnessed and analyzed the totalitarian movements of the 20th century, noted that lonely populations became ripe for totalitarian domination. Dictatorial regimes used ideology to enforce a desperate kind of isolation without true solitude, creating what she called a self-compulsion of ideological thinking that ruined all relationship with reality. The distinction was crucial. Healthy solitude allowed for independent thought and authentic selfhood, while enforced isolation destroyed the capacity for both. The American philosopher Henry David Thoreau provided perhaps the most famous extended meditation on solitude in Western literature through his book Walden, published in 1854. Thoreau spent over 2 years living in a small cabin he built himself near Walden Pond in Massachusetts, attempting what he called an experiment in living deliberately. His account of this experience became a foundational text for understanding the value of withdrawal from society's demands. Thoreau was not a natural hermit, nor did he hate humanity. He received visitors at his cabin and maintained friendships. He even walked into the nearby town of Concord regularly. But he found that periods of aloneness offered something irreplaceable. In a passage that resonates across the centuries, Thoreau wrote that he was never lonely at Walden Pond, for he never found a companion that was so companionable as solitude. He observed that we are often more lonely when we go abroad among people than when we stay in our private spaces. This paradox, that crowds can generate loneliness while solitude can create a sense of completion, challenged and continues to challenge assumptions about human social needs. Thoreau saw solitude not as absence but as presence, not as void but as fullness. In quiet moments among the trees and beside the pond, he experienced a kind of company more satisfying than most social interactions could provide. The transcendentalist movement that Thoreau represented, along with his mentor Ralph Waldo Emerson, placed enormous value on self-reliance and individual insight. These thinkers, writing in the mid-1800s as America was rapidly industrializing and urbanizing, saw solitude as a counterbalance to the conforming pressures of mass society. Emerson wrote of the importance of trusting oneself and listening to the inner voice that society constantly tries to drown out with its noise and demands. This wasn't narcissistic self-absorption, but rather an attempt to discover authentic values and genuine understanding beneath the layers of social conditioning. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, Nietzsche's predecessor and sometime influence, made an even stronger case for solitude as the ultimate lifestyle. He insisted that a person can truly be themselves only when alone, and if they do not love solitude, they will not love freedom, for it is only when alone that a person is really free. Social beings, in Schopenhauer's view, are inevitably wrapped up in their environments, making genuine freedom from external influences rare. For him, detachment from society wasn't frightening, but rather a means to converse genuinely with oneself, devoid of pretense or constraints. A lonely mind, he argued, is a genuinely free mind capable of wandering beyond the influence of others. The French philosopher Blaise Pascal, writing in the 1600s, offered a more cautionary perspective that nonetheless acknowledged solitude's significance. He observed that all of humanity's problems stem from our inability to sit quietly in a room alone. This wasn't praise for solitude so much as recognition of how desperately we flee from it and from the self-examination it makes possible. Pascal saw our constant busyness and distraction-seeking as symptoms of a deeper disease, an unwillingness to face ourselves and our mortality. Solitude, enforcing such confrontation, terrified most people even as it offered the only path toward certain crucial truths. Across these varied voices spanning continents and centuries, certain themes emerge repeatedly. Solitude appears as a space for discovering authentic selfhood apart from social roles and expectations. It functions as a laboratory for developing independence of thought and resistance to conformity. It creates conditions for spiritual or philosophical insight that crowds and conversation tend to interrupt. It allows for the cultivation of self-sufficiency that paradoxically enhances one's capacity for genuine relationship with others. And it offers a kind of freedom from social judgment, from performance, from the need to present carefully curated versions of oneself. But these historical voices also acknowledged solitude's potential dangers. No philosopher advocated for permanent isolation or chronic loneliness. They recognized that humans are indeed social creatures whose flourishing depends partly on connection with others. Too much solitude could curdle into misanthropy, paranoia, or mental illness. The goal was balance. Enough time alone to maintain authentic selfhood and independent thought. Enough time with others to remain grounded in shared reality and human connection. The sweet spot lay somewhere between the extremes of constant socialization and complete isolation. This historical wisdom becomes particularly relevant in our current era, when technology has created unprecedented possibilities for both constant connection and profound isolation. We carry devices that link us instantly to billions of other humans, yet rates of reported loneliness have reached epidemic levels in many societies. We are, in some sense, always together and yet frequently feel terribly alone. The philosophers and mystics of the past didn't know about smartphones or social media, but their insights into the nature and value of solitude speak powerfully to our contemporary situation. They remind us that solitude and loneliness are not the same thing, that time alone can be nourishing rather than depleting, and that the capacity to be peacefully alone with ourselves forms a foundation for psychological health and authentic living. As we've seen, the historical perspective on solitude is rich, complex, and often contradictory. Some voices emphasize its spiritual dimensions, others its philosophical necessity, still others its role in creativity and independent thought. But running through all these diverse perspectives is a recognition that solitude matters, that it offers something valuable and perhaps essential to human flourishing, and that our relationship with being alone reflects and shapes our understanding of what it means to be human. These historical insights set the stage for understanding what modern neuroscience and psychology have discovered about how solitude actually affects our brains, our emotions, and our sense of self. The neuroscience of solitude. The brain, that 3-pound universe nestled in the darkness of our skulls, operates in distinctly different modes depending on whether we're engaged with others or alone with our thoughts. Only in recent decades have neuroscientists begun mapping these differences, revealing surprising findings about what happens in our neural architecture during solitude. These discoveries illuminate why time alone can feel so different from time spent in company, and why solitude creates unique opportunities for certain kinds of mental processing. At the heart of solitude's neural effects lies a brain network called the default mode network, or DMN for short. This network, comprising interconnected regions scattered throughout the brain, was discovered somewhat accidentally in the late 1990s by neuroscientist Marcus Raichle and his colleagues at Washington University. They were studying brain activity during various cognitive tasks when they noticed something unexpected. Certain brain regions became more active when people weren't doing anything particular, when they were just resting between experimental tasks. This seemed counterintuitive. Why would the brain become more active during apparent idleness than during focused tasks? Further research revealed that these brain regions weren't idle at all, but rather engaged in a different kind of work. The default mode network activates when we turn our attention inward rather than outward, when we reflect on ourselves and our experiences rather than processing external stimuli. This network supports introspection, autobiographical memory, imagining future scenarios, thinking about other people's mental states, and constructing our sense of self across time. In other words, the default mode network is where much of our inner mental life unfolds, and it flourishes particularly during solitude. When we spend time alone, especially in quiet and unstimulating environments, the default mode network kicks into higher gear. Brain imaging studies show increased activity in the DMN during periods of solitude, particularly when people aren't deliberately focusing on external tasks or inputs. This activation supports several important cognitive functions. First, it enhances memory consolidation. During solitude, when the brain isn't processing constant new information, it can more effectively process and store information from earlier experiences. Research has demonstrated that stimulation of the DMN during solitude improves memory performance, enhancing our recollection of events, facts, and experiences. This is one reason why students often find that taking breaks from studying, actually stepping away into solitude rather than scrolling through social media, helps information sink in more effectively. The default mode network's activation during solitude also supports what neuroscientists call autobiographical thinking. Reflecting on our past experiences, understanding how they've shaped us, and imagining how we might respond to future situations. This kind of thinking is essential for developing a coherent sense of identity across time. When we spend time in solitude, allowing our minds to wander through memories and possibilities, we're not wasting time but rather engaging in crucial identity-building work. The brain is essentially asking itself, who am I? Where have I been? Where am I going? These questions, fundamental to human experience, require the kind of uninterrupted mental space that solitude provides. Research by neuroscientist Livia Tomova and her colleagues at the University of Cambridge revealed just how deeply social connection is wired into our neural architecture, which in turn illuminates why solitude affects us so profoundly. In a fascinating study, Tomova asked participants to fast from food for 10 hours, then scan their brains while showing them pictures of delicious food. Later, the same participants spent 10 hours in solitude. No phones, no internet, no books, just themselves, and then had their brains scanned while viewing pictures of happy groups of friends. The brain activation patterns were remarkably similar. Just as food deprivation created craving responses in brain regions associated with hunger, social deprivation created similar craving responses in regions associated with social connection. This suggested that our need to connect with others is as basic as our need for food, but it also revealed something important about solitude. Even brief periods trigger noticeable changes in how our brains process social information. Other neuroscience research has revealed that solitude affects our stress response systems. When we spend time alone in calm, safe environments, activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear and threat detection center, tends to decrease. Simultaneously, blood flow increases to the prefrontal cortex, the brain region involved in planning, reflection, and rational thinking. This shift helps explain why solitude often feels calming and clarifying. Without social stimuli constantly triggering social cognitive processing and potential threat assessment, the brain can downshift from vigilant social monitoring mode into a more relaxed, internally focused state. Studies have found that silence and solitude can trigger the production of certain neurochemicals that support brain health. Research shows that extended periods of quiet can reduce cortisol levels. Cortisol being the primary stress hormone that, in chronic excess, damages brain structures and impairs cognitive function. Simultaneously, solitude in pleasant environments can boost production of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, chemicals associated with feelings of well-being and reward. Interestingly, dopamine activation patterns vary dramatically between social and solitary reward systems. For some people, social interaction triggers strong dopamine responses. Parties and gatherings literally feel rewarding at a neurochemical level. For others, solitary activities like deep thinking, problem solving, or creative work trigger similar dopamine responses. This helps explain why some people are energized by socializing while others find it draining and prefer the rewards of solitary pursuits. The relationship between solitude and creativity has particularly intrigued neuroscientists. When we're engaged with others, certain cognitive control networks activate to help us monitor social cues, regulate our behavior appropriately, and maintain conversation. These networks, while essential for social functioning, can actually inhibit the kind of free-flowing, associative thinking that supports creativity. In solitude, when these social monitoring systems can relax, the brain more easily enters states conducive to creative insight. Studies on jazz musicians and rappers who improvise show that during creative flow, brain regions associated with self-monitoring and conscious control decrease their activity, while regions associated with automatic, spontaneous generation increase theirs. This neural signature of creativity, reduced control, increased spontaneity, happens more readily in solitude. Research has also revealed that solitude helps reduce what psychologists call the spotlight effect. Our tendency to overestimate how much others notice our actions, appearance, and mistakes. When we're around other people, our brains dedicate substantial resources to modeling what others might be thinking about us, a process called theory of mind. This constant social cognition is mentally taxing and can generate anxiety. In solitude, freed from this cognitive burden, we can think more objectively about ourselves and our experiences. The mental energy no longer spent on social monitoring becomes available for other purposes: reflection, creativity, problem solving. A fascinating line of neuroscience research has explored how solitude affects brain plasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections and adapt to new experiences. Some studies suggest that periods of solitude, particularly when combined with meditation or contemplative practice, can actually alter brain structure over time. Regular practitioners of meditation, which typically involves solitary practice, show changes in gray matter density in regions associated with attention, emotional regulation, and self-awareness. While social interaction provides crucial stimulation that supports cognitive health, solitude offers a different kind of stimulation. The stimulation of turning inward, of processing accumulated experiences, of integrating and consolidating learning. The relationship between solitude and stress is complex and depends critically on context. Involuntary isolation, especially prolonged isolation in unpleasant circumstances, triggers severe stress responses and can cause lasting psychological damage. Brain studies of people in solitary confinement or prolonged involuntary isolation show increased stress hormones, changes in stress-responsive brain regions, and sometimes lasting alterations in how the brain processes social information. However, voluntary solitude in safe, pleasant environments produces opposite effects. Studies show that people who regularly take time for voluntary solitude report lower stress levels, and physiological measures bear this out. Heart rate variability, a marker of healthy stress regulation, tends to increase with regular periods of chosen solitude. Inflammatory markers, which rise under chronic stress, tend to decrease. Research has also explored what happens in the aging brain during solitude. Older adults show different patterns than younger people in how they experience and respond to alone time. Younger brains, with their high degree of plasticity and their pressing developmental task of identity formation, may process solitude differently than older brains that have established more stable identity structures and accumulated more experience. Some research suggests that older adults who maintain a balance between solitude and social connection show better cognitive preservation and slower age-related cognitive decline compared to those at either extreme, either isolated or constantly socially engaged with little time for reflection. One of the most intriguing findings from neuroscience research is that the benefits of solitude are not automatic but depend significantly on what we do with our alone time. Simply being physically alone doesn't necessarily engage the default mode network in beneficial ways. If we spend our solitary time anxiously ruminating, the brain patterns look quite different from those seen during peaceful reflection. If we fill every solitary moment with digital stimulation, scrolling social media, watching videos, playing games, we may be physically alone, but our brains remain in a stimulated, outward-focused mode that prevents the deeper processing that solitude can offer. True solitude, from a neuroscience perspective, involves both physical separation from others and mental disengagement from constant external input. The research also reveals interesting individual differences in how brains respond to solitude. People who score higher on measures of introversion show different patterns of brain activation during social interaction compared to extroverts. For introverts, social interaction activates stress response systems more readily, while solitude more quickly engages the default mode network and associated feelings of calm. This isn't a value judgment, but simply a description of neural reality. Different brains find reward and rest in different circumstances. Understanding these differences helps explain why some people desperately need regular periods of solitude to feel balanced, while others find extended alone time uncomfortable or even distressing. Modern neuroscience has also begun exploring how digital technology affects the brain's response to solitude. Constant connectivity, even when we're physically alone, prevents the brain from entering the deeper states associated with true solitude. Notifications, messages, and the mere possibility of social connection keeps social cognitive networks partially activated. Studies show that people who practice digital detoxes, periods of deliberately disconnecting from phones and internet, show increased activation of the default mode network and report greater feelings of relaxation and clarity. This suggests that in our hyperconnected age, achieving the brain states associated with beneficial solitude may require more deliberate effort than in past eras. Research on the neuroscience of silence has added another dimension to our understanding. Studies have shown that 2 hours of silence per day can actually promote cell development in the hippocampus, a brain region crucial for memory formation. While this research was conducted in mice and requires careful interpretation when applied to humans, it suggests that quiet environments may offer neurogenic benefits, literally supporting the growth of new neurons. Even short periods of silence have been shown to reduce physiological markers of stress and enhance cognitive performance on subsequent tasks. The neuroscience of solitude also illuminates why certain environments enhance or diminish solitude's benefits. Natural environments, forests, beaches, mountains, seem to amplify the positive neural effects of alone time. Research in environmental neuroscience shows that time in nature reduces activity in brain regions associated with rumination and worry, while enhancing activity in regions associated with attention restoration and emotional well-being. Combining solitude with nature exposure appears to create synergistic effects, explaining why so many cultures have traditions of solitary retreat into natural environments for spiritual or psychological renewal. As our understanding of the brain's response to solitude deepens, certain principles emerge clearly. Solitude activates distinctive neural networks involved in self-reflection, memory consolidation, and identity formation. It allows the brain to process accumulated experiences and integrate learning. It can reduce stress response systems and enhance emotional regulation. It creates conditions conducive to creativity and insight. But these benefits depend on the quality of solitude, voluntary rather than forced, peaceful rather than anxious, genuinely disconnected rather than superficially alone while digitally tethered. The brain, it turns out, knows the difference between healthy solitude and harmful isolation, and it responds accordingly. This neural wisdom, revealed through modern imaging technology, echoes what philosophers intuited for centuries. Solitude, approached rightly, offers something precious and irreplaceable for the human mind: psychological benefits, self-discovery, and identity. Beyond the neurochemistry and brain networks, solitude creates space for some of psychology's most profound processes: the development of authentic self, the formation of identity, and the ongoing work of understanding who we are beneath the layers of social performance and expectation. These psychological dimensions of solitude reach into the heart of what it means to develop as a person across the lifespan. Identity formation, the crucial developmental task of adolescence and young adulthood according to psychologist Erik Erikson, requires periods of solitary reflection. Erikson understood that young people need to explore different possible selves, try on various identities, and eventually commit to a coherent sense of who they are. This exploration cannot happen entirely in social contexts, where the pressure to conform, the need to maintain certain images, and the influence of others' expectations shape behavior constantly. In solitude, freed from these immediate social pressures, young people can ask themselves questions that would be difficult to consider in company. What do I actually believe, apart from what I've been taught to believe? What do I value when no one is watching or judging? What kind of person do I want to become? Recent research has confirmed the connection between solitude and identity development. A study examining Malaysian adolescents found that self-reflection significantly mediated the relationship between solitude and identity development. Young people who spent time in solitude and engaged in self-reflective thought showed stronger identity commitment and more advanced identity exploration. The indirect effect of solitude on identity development through self-reflection was substantial, suggesting that alone time provides essential space for the internal work of figuring out who one is. This process of identity formation in solitude involves what psychologists call authentic self-awareness, understanding one's genuine thoughts, feelings, values, and desires as distinct from the versions of self we present in different social contexts. We all perform different roles: employee, friend, family member, community participant. These roles carry expectations, norms, and scripts for behavior. While playing these roles is normal and necessary, spending too much time in role performance without periods of solitude can lead to a sense of disconnection from authentic self. People begin to wonder, which version of me is real? Do I even know who I am when I'm not performing for someone? Solitude offers what researchers call negative freedom. Freedom from the demands, expectations, and judgments of others, and positive freedom. Freedom to explore one's own thoughts, feelings, and desires without interference. Research conducted during lockdowns of the global pandemic revealed that many people experienced their enforced solitude as offering unexpected opportunities for self-discovery. Participants in qualitative studies described becoming aware of discrepancies between their authentic selves and the selves they had been performing in social contexts. One participant in a study on solitude during lockdowns reflected that the experience allowed them to be kinder to themselves, suggesting increased self-compassion arising from self-reflection in solitude. The process of self-discovery in solitude isn't always comfortable. When we remove the distractions of constant social engagement, we may confront aspects of ourselves that we've been avoiding. Unresolved emotions, uncomfortable truths about our behaviors or choices, fears and desires we've suppressed. These can emerge during solitary reflection. Researchers describe this as self-confrontation, and participants in studies often note that while solitary self-reflection can be challenging, it leads to personal growth and increased authenticity. One study participant described it as sometimes not feeling completely positive but leading to learning that helps with future situations. This capacity for uncomfortable self-confrontation represents an important aspect of emotional maturity. People who can sit with difficult emotions and thoughts without immediately seeking distraction or social reassurance develop greater emotional resilience. They learn to self-soothe, to regulate their emotions internally rather than depending entirely on external validation or distraction. This doesn't mean they don't need others. Humans are fundamentally social, but rather that they can navigate their internal emotional landscape with some independence. Research on self-reflection in solitude has revealed specific mechanisms through which alone time enhances self-understanding. First, solitude provides space for what psychologists call emotion labeling, the practice of identifying and naming one's emotional states. This might seem simple, but accurately identifying emotions is actually a complex skill that many people struggle with. In the rush of social interaction, we often react to emotions without fully understanding them. Solitude offers time to pause and ask, what am I actually feeling? Why am I feeling this way? What triggered this emotion? This process of emotion labeling reduces the intensity of negative emotions and enhances emotional clarity. Second, solitude enables value clarification, understanding what truly matters to us as distinct from what we've been taught should matter or what others expect us to value. Research shows that people who regularly spend time in reflective solitude develop clearer value hierarchies and make life choices more aligned with their authentic values. They're less likely to pursue goals that don't actually resonate with their true selves simply because those goals carry social prestige or approval. This alignment between values and choices contributes significantly to life satisfaction and sense of meaning. Third, solitude supports integration of life experiences into a coherent narrative. Narrative psychology research shows that we understand our lives and ourselves through stories. The stories we tell ourselves about who we are, where we've been, and where we're going. Constructing and revising these narratives requires reflective time. In solitude, we can review experiences, extract meaning from them, and weave them into our ongoing life story. This narrative integration is essential for psychological coherence and continuity of self across time. People who lack opportunities for solitary reflection often report feeling fragmented, as if their lives consist of disconnected episodes rather than a meaningful whole. The relationship between solitude and authenticity represents another crucial psychological dimension. Authenticity, living in accordance with one's true self rather than false selves constructed to meet others' expectations, is consistently linked with psychological well-being. Research shows that people who score higher on measures of authenticity report greater life satisfaction, more positive emotions, and stronger sense of meaning. But developing authenticity requires knowing one's true self, which in turn requires the kind of self-exploration that happens in solitude. During the pandemic lockdowns, researchers studying solitude found that many participants described their enforced alone time as offering unexpected opportunities for increased authenticity. Freed temporarily from the need to maintain social performances, people reported feeling more genuine, more aligned with their internal states. They discovered or rediscovered aspects of themselves that had been suppressed by the demands of constant social engagement. This doesn't mean social life is inauthentic, but rather that balance matters. Periods of solitude allow us to check in with our authentic selves and make adjustments if we've drifted too far into performance mode. Research has also explored how solitude affects self-compassion, the ability to treat ourselves with kindness rather than harsh self-judgment. Interestingly, studies show that people who spend regular time in reflective solitude often develop greater self-compassion. This might seem counterintuitive, as we might expect that alone time would allow harsh self-criticism to run rampant. However, the opposite often occurs. In solitude, without the comparative pressure of social contexts, people can view themselves more objectively and kindly. They can acknowledge their struggles and imperfections without the added layer of shame that often accompanies social awareness of our failings. The development of self-trust represents another psychological benefit of solitude. When we spend time alone, we practice relying on ourselves for comfort, entertainment, decision-making, and emotional regulation. This builds confidence in our own capabilities. Research participants who regularly engage in chosen solitude often report increased self-trust and self-reliance. They discover that they can be okay alone, that they don't need constant external input to feel whole or occupied. This self-trust, paradoxically, often enhances relationships because people approach connections from a place of wholeness rather than desperate need. Solitude also plays an important role in goal clarification and pursuit. In social contexts, we're exposed constantly to others' goals, achievements, and priorities. This can be inspiring but also confusing. We may lose track of what we personally want to accomplish amid the noise of what others are doing. Solitude provides space to separate our own goals from those that have been socially imposed or suggested. Research shows that people who regularly take time for solitary reflection are more likely to pursue goals that align with intrinsic motivation rather than extrinsic rewards, and these intrinsically motivated goals lead to greater satisfaction and persistence. The psychological benefits of solitude extend to enhanced decision-making capacity. Complex decisions often benefit from time spent in reflection rather than immediate social discussion. While others' perspectives can be valuable, solitude allows us to process information without the influence of others' opinions, biases, or emotional states. Studies show that people who take time alone to think through important decisions often feel more confident about their choices and experience less decision regret. The space for unhurried, uninfluenced thought that solitude provides seems crucial for complex decision-making. Research on personality development suggests that solitude may be particularly important for certain personality types. People who score higher on introversion tend to find solitude less depleting and more restorative than extroverts do. However, even extroverts benefit from some solitude, though they may need less of it and prefer shorter periods. The key is finding the right balance for one's temperament. Enough solitude to support self-reflection and authenticity, enough social engagement to satisfy social needs and maintain perspective. The relationship between solitude and psychological well-being is not entirely straightforward. Studies show that the benefits of solitude depend heavily on motivation. Why someone seeks alone time matters as much as the time itself. People who seek solitude for positive reasons, desire for reflection, enjoyment of solitary activities, need for restoration, tend to benefit psychologically. Those who retreat into solitude out of fear, avoidance, or lack of alternatives often experience it as harmful. This distinction between chosen solitude as a positive state and enforced isolation as a negative state runs throughout the psychological literature. Developmental considerations also matter. During adolescence, when identity formation is central, young people need balance between solitude for self-exploration and social engagement for learning about relationships and social norms. Too much isolation during these developmental years can interfere with social skill development. However, too little solitude can interfere with identity formation, leaving young people overly dependent on peer groups for sense of self. Research suggests that adolescents who maintain moderate levels of both solitude and social engagement tend to show the healthiest psychological development. Throughout adulthood, the psychological functions of solitude evolve. Young adults may use solitude primarily for identity exploration and goal clarification. Middle-aged adults may use it for stress management and life review. Older adults may use it for meaning-making and life integration. But across all life stages, solitude offers space for the ongoing work of understanding ourselves, adjusting our self-concepts, and maintaining psychological continuity and coherence. The psychological literature also emphasizes that solitude's benefits require what researchers call psychological richness, engaging in meaningful activities or reflection during alone time rather than passive consumption or avoidance. Simply being alone while scrolling mindlessly through social media or watching television doesn't provide the same psychological benefits as reading, creating, meditating, or thoughtfully reflecting. The quality of our solitary time matters as much as the quantity. Creativity and problem-solving in solitude. The connection between solitude and creativity has been recognized for so long it has become almost cliché. The writer in the cabin, the scientist alone in the laboratory, the artist in the bare studio. Yet this stereotype persists not because of romantic myth but because it reflects genuine psychological and cognitive reality. Creativity flourishes in solitude for reasons that research has increasingly illuminated. At the most basic level, creativity requires what researchers call incubation time. Periods when we're not actively focused on a problem, but our minds continue working on it beneath conscious awareness. The classic example is the shower insight or the solution that arrives during a morning walk. These breakthroughs happen because our brains, freed from immediate demands, can make novel connections between previously unrelated ideas. Solitude, particularly when combined with low-demand activities like walking or doing simple manual work, creates ideal conditions for this incubation. Research by Benjamin Baird and colleagues found what they called the sweet spot for creative insights, moderately engaging activities that occupy just enough attention to prevent obsessive rumination but don't require intense concentration. Activities like walking, showering, or doing simple manual work in solitude allow the mind to wander productively. Their studies showed that people generated more creative solutions to problems after spending time in this kind of moderately engaging solitude than after either intense focused work or complete rest. The mechanism behind this phenomenon involves what neuroscientists call the default mode network, that same brain system we discussed earlier that activates during rest and self-reflection. When this network activates, it increases communication between brain regions that don't normally talk to each other much during focused external tasks. This increased connectivity allows for the novel combinations of ideas that characterize creative insights. You might connect a concept from your work with a memory from childhood, or notice parallels between seemingly unrelated problems. These connections happen more readily when the brain isn't locked into focused, convergent thinking mode. Historical examples of creative breakthroughs in solitude abound. Albert Einstein reportedly formulated key insights into relativity theory during solitary thought experiments he called Gedanken experiments. Isaac Newton made revolutionary discoveries in mathematics and physics during a period of relative isolation in his family home during the plague outbreak of 1665. Charles Darwin developed his theory of evolution during years of relative seclusion at his country estate, away from the social demands of London. Marie Curie conducted her groundbreaking research on radioactivity in a modest laboratory where she often worked alone. While these examples shouldn't be taken to mean that great scientists worked entirely in isolation, all had colleagues, mentors, and intellectual communities, they do illustrate how crucial periods of solitary work proved to their achievements. In the arts, the connection between solitude and creativity becomes even more pronounced. Emily Dickinson wrote most of her revolutionary poetry in the solitude of her Amherst home, rarely leaving her property in her later years. Virginia Woolf argued famously that a woman needed money and a room of her own, that is, economic independence and physical solitude, to create literature. The composer Ludwig van Beethoven took long solitary walks through the Vienna woods, during which he worked out compositional problems mentally before writing them down. Painter Georgia O'Keeffe found her artistic voice during periods spent alone in New Mexico, far from the New York art scene. These artists understood intuitively what research would later confirm, that creativity requires protected space away from social demands and stimulation. Contemporary research on creative professionals confirms the pattern. Studies of writers, artists, scientists, and inventors show that most report needing substantial periods of solitude for their most creative work. One study found that highly creative individuals across various domains reported spending significantly more time alone than less creative peers in similar fields. This wasn't because creative people were antisocial or lonely, but rather because they recognized that their creative work demanded conditions that only solitude could provide. What exactly does solitude offer that enhances creativity? First, it provides freedom from social conformity pressures. When we're around others, we unconsciously edit our thoughts and ideas to align with social norms and expectations. We self-censor, we moderate, we adjust. This is normal and often appropriate in social contexts, but it can severely hamper creative thinking. In solitude, we can entertain strange, unconventional, even absurd ideas without fear of judgment. We can follow thought paths that might seem foolish if voiced aloud. Many breakthrough ideas initially seem ridiculous, and they might never survive if subjected to immediate social evaluation. Second, solitude eliminates distraction. Creative work, especially during the generative phase when ideas are forming, requires sustained attention. Social interaction, even pleasant interaction, fragments attention. We're pulled between our internal creative process and the external demands of conversation, collaboration, or simply being around others. Even the mere presence of other people can divide our attention. In solitude, we can achieve the deep focus that allows complex ideas to fully develop. Third, solitude permits the kind of play and experimentation essential to creativity. Creative work involves trying possibilities, making mistakes, exploring dead ends, and gradually iterating towards solutions. This process can feel vulnerable and works best when we're not performing for an audience. In solitude, we can be messy, confused, and exploratory without needing to present polished results or coherent progress. We can fail privately, which paradoxically often leads to success. Research on creative flow states, those periods of intense absorption when work seems effortless and time disappears, shows that they occur most readily during solitary work. Flow requires clear goals, immediate feedback, and a balance between challenge and skill. While flow can occur in social situations, particularly in collaborative work between well-matched partners, most people find it easier to achieve alone. The absence of social monitoring allows for the full engagement that characterizes flow. Studies show that people in flow states during solitary work produce more creative output and report greater satisfaction with their creative process than when working in social environments. The relationship between solitude and divergent thinking. The ability to generate multiple possible solutions to problems has been particularly well studied. Divergent thinking is essential for creativity, contrasting with convergent thinking, which narrows towards single correct answers. Research consistently shows that people generate more divergent ideas when brainstorming alone than when in groups. This might seem to contradict the popular belief in group brainstorming, but studies have repeatedly found that individuals working separately produce more and higher quality ideas than the same number of people working together. The main reason is that group brainstorming involves production blocking. While one person speaks, others must wait, and their ideas may be forgotten or evaluated away in the meantime. However, the relationship between solitude and creativity isn't entirely straightforward. While idea generation often benefits from solitude, idea evaluation and implementation often benefit from collaboration. The creative process typically involves alternating between solitary and social phases. Artists might work alone on their creations but benefit from sharing work with trusted critics. Scientists might conduct solitary thought experiments but test ideas through conversation with colleagues. Writers might draft in solitude but revise based on feedback from editors and readers. The optimal pattern seems to involve solitary time for generating and developing ideas, social time for refining and implementing them, then more solitary time for further development in an ongoing cycle. Research has also explored individual differences in how solitude affects creativity. People higher in openness to experience, one of the big 5 personality traits, tend to benefit more from solitary creative time than those lower in openness. Introverts often find solitary creative work more natural and productive than extroverts do, though extroverts can certainly be creative. These differences suggest that optimal creative processes might vary somewhat by personality, with some people needing more solitude and others needing more social interaction to do their best creative work. The physical environment during creative solitude also matters. Research in environmental psychology shows that certain settings enhance creative thinking during alone time. Natural environments particularly seem to boost creativity. Studies have found that spending time in nature improves performance on creative problem-solving tasks. One study found that backpackers showed a 50% improvement on creativity tests after 4 days in nature disconnected from technology. The combination of natural beauty, reduced stimulation, and enforced solitude seemed to refresh creative capacities. Aesthetic environments also enhance creativity during solitude. Research shows that people working in beautiful, inspiring spaces generate more creative ideas than those in bland or ugly environments. This effect seems to be mediated by positive emotion. Beautiful environments put people in positive moods, and positive moods are associated with more flexible, creative thinking. During solitude in pleasant spaces, this effect is amplified because there are fewer distractions from the aesthetic experience. The phenomenon of creative breakthrough after struggle, the eureka moment, illustrates another aspect of solitude's role in creativity. These moments typically follow extended periods of failed problem-solving attempts. You work on a problem, make no progress, give up, and then suddenly, often during unrelated solitary activity, the solution appears. This pattern reflects how the brain continues working on problems beneath conscious awareness. Solitude provides the mental space for this unconscious processing to occur and for its results to break through into consciousness. Studies of preparation and recovery in creative work also highlight solitude's importance. Before engaging in creative work, periods of solitary preparation, gathering thoughts, reviewing materials, setting intentions, enhance creative output. After creative efforts, solitary recovery time allows for consolidation and reflection. Artists often describe needing time alone after intensive creative periods to process what they've done and prepare for the next phase. This rhythm of preparation, creation, and recovery, all involving significant solitude, seems to characterize sustainable creative practice. Research has also examined how digital connectivity affects creativity during solitude. Constant connectivity, even when physically alone, seems to interfere with the deep mental states that support creativity. The possibility of interruption fragments attention. The mental habit of checking for messages prevents the sustained focus creativity requires. Studies show that people who practice regular digital disconnection during creative work report greater creative output and satisfaction. True creative solitude, in our era, seems to require not just physical aloneness but also technological disconnection. The relationship between solitude and problem-solving extends beyond traditionally creative domains. Complex problem-solving in any field, whether business strategy, scientific research, software development, or personal life decisions, benefits from solitary reflection. Problems with multiple variables, competing considerations, and uncertain outcomes require the kind of unhurried, multidimensional thinking that happens best in solitude. Research shows that people make better complex decisions after spending time thinking alone than after only group discussion. This doesn't diminish the value of collaborative problem-solving. Different phases of problem-solving benefit from different social contexts. Problem definition often benefits from diverse perspectives in group settings. Solution evaluation can benefit from critical feedback. Implementation requires coordination and collaboration. But the phase of deep analysis, of really working through the implications and possibilities of different approaches, often happens most effectively during solitude. Social and relationship benefits. One of the most counterintuitive findings about solitude is that time alone can actually improve our relationships with others. This seems paradoxical. How can spending less time with people enhance connections with them? Yet research consistently shows that people who maintain healthy solitude practices often report more satisfying relationships and deeper connections. The mechanisms behind this phenomenon reveal important truths about human social needs and capacities. The key lies in understanding that relationship quality differs from relationship quantity. Constant togetherness doesn't automatically create strong bonds. In fact, it can sometimes undermine them through accumulated friction, reduced appreciation, and the exhaustion that comes from inadequate personal space. Relationships thrive on a balance between connection and autonomy, between we and me. Solitude serves the me side of this balance, which paradoxically strengthens the we. Research by Christopher Long and James Averill explored the connection between capacity for solitude and relationship quality. They found that people who felt more comfortable being alone also reported more positive experiences when with others. This wasn't because solitary people were antisocial or preferred isolation, but rather because their comfort with aloneness reflected psychological autonomy, the ability to stand independently while still choosing connection. People who need constant social contact often approach relationships from a position of dependency and need, while those comfortable with solitude can approach relationships from a position of choice and genuine desire for connection. The concept of autonomy versus dependency in relationships has been explored extensively in attachment theory. Securely attached individuals who have the healthiest relationship patterns show comfort with both closeness and independence. They can be intimate without losing themselves, can be alone without feeling abandoned. Insecurely attached individuals, by contrast, often struggle with either excessive closeness, anxious attachment, or excessive distance, avoidant attachment. Research suggests that developing a healthy relationship with solitude can actually help move people toward more secure attachment. Learning to self-soothe, to find contentment alone, reduces the desperate quality that characterizes anxious attachment while maintaining the capacity for connection that avoidant individuals struggle with. Solitude also provides essential restoration from the demands of social interaction. All social interaction, even with people we love, requires effort. We must monitor social cues, regulate our behavior, consider others' needs and feelings, communicate clearly, and manage potential conflicts. This is worthwhile effort, but it is effort nonetheless. Research shows that after social interaction, particularly prolonged or intense interaction, people need time to restore their social energy. Introverts typically need more restoration time than extroverts, but everyone needs some. When we don't get adequate solitary restoration time, we can become irritable, impatient, and less responsive to others. We might snap at loved ones, feel overwhelmed by simple requests, or withdraw emotionally even when physically present. Regular solitude prevents this social exhaustion, allowing us to bring our best selves to our relationships. Studies have found that people who maintain balance between social time and solitude report less relationship conflict and greater relationship satisfaction than those at either extreme. Solitude also enhances empathy and perspective-taking in ways that might seem counterintuitive. During time alone, we can reflect on our interactions and relationships without the immediate pressure to respond. We can think about others' viewpoints, understand their motivations, and recognize our own contributions to relationship dynamics. This reflective capacity, which develops during solitude, makes us more thoughtful and considerate partners, friends, and family members. Research has found that after spending time in solitude, people often report feeling more patient and generous toward others. The mental rest that solitude provides seems to replenish our capacity for emotional labor and caring behavior. One study found that couples who each maintained some individual solitude practices reported higher relationship satisfaction than those who spent nearly all their free time together. The space apart created appreciation and longing, preventing the taking for granted that can develop in constant togetherness. Solitude also supports the maintenance of individual identity within relationships, which research shows is crucial for relationship health. When couples or friends spend all their time together, individual identities can blur. People may lose track of their own preferences, interests, and desires as they constantly accommodate to the other. Over time, this loss of individual identity can breed resentment and a feeling of having sacrificed too much for the relationship. Solitude provides space to maintain and cultivate individual selfhood, which actually strengthens relationships by ensuring that two whole people are coming together rather than two halves seeking completion through merger. The relationship between solitude and authentic self-presentation represents another connection to relationship quality. Research shows that people who regularly spend time in solitude and self-reflection are more authentic in their relationships. They present themselves more genuinely rather than performing what they think others want to see. This authenticity, while sometimes requiring more courage, creates deeper and more satisfying connections. Relationships built on authentic self-presentation are more resilient and meaningful than those built on careful performance. Solitude also plays an important role in processing relationship experiences. After conflicts, misunderstandings, or even positive interactions, time alone allows us to make sense of what happened. We can examine our reactions, understand our emotions, and decide how we want to respond or adjust. Without this processing time, relationship experiences can accumulate without integration, leaving us feeling confused or overwhelmed. Research shows that people who take time for solitary reflection on their relationships navigate conflicts more constructively and learn more from relationship experiences. The concept of differentiation in relationships, developed by psychologist Murray Bowen, describes the capacity to maintain a clear sense of self while remaining emotionally connected to others. Highly differentiated people can hold their own opinions and values while respecting others' different views. They can be close without fusing, separate without distancing. Solitude practices support differentiation by providing regular opportunities to reconnect with one's own thoughts, feelings, and values apart from relationship contexts. Research shows that differentiation correlates strongly with relationship satisfaction and stability. Solitude can also function as a healthy alternative to more destructive relationship patterns. Some people, when feeling overwhelmed or upset with their partner, engage in destructive behaviors like criticizing, blaming, or seeking validation from third parties. Taking space for solitary reflection represents a more constructive response. It allows emotions to settle, provides perspective, and creates opportunity for thoughtful rather than reactive communication. Couples therapists often recommend that partners develop strategies for taking space when needed, recognizing that temporary solitude can prevent escalation and support more productive interaction. Research on long-term relationships reveals that successful couples often develop what John Gottman calls independent interests and lives. Partners maintain some separate friendships, hobbies, and activities rather than doing everything together. This independence, which often involves periods of solitude, creates material for interesting conversation and prevents the stagnation that can occur when couples' lives become completely merged. People need experiences outside their primary relationships to continue growing and developing, and these experiences require some time apart. The balance between solitude and togetherness varies across relationships and life stages. New relationships typically involve more togetherness as partners establish bonds and learn about each other. Long-established relationships may allow more comfortable solitude because partners feel secure in the connection. Relationships facing stress might need more togetherness for support or might need more solitude to prevent overwhelming each other. The key is flexibility and communication. Being able to adjust the balance based on current needs rather than rigidly maintaining any particular pattern. Research also suggests that solitude can enhance sexual relationships within partnerships. Time apart creates opportunity for longing and anticipation. It prevents the excessive familiarity that can reduce sexual desire in long-term relationships. Periods of solitary self-reflection can also help individuals understand and communicate their sexual desires more clearly. Couples therapists often note that partners who maintain some independent lives report more satisfying sexual relationships than those who are constantly together. The social benefits of solitude extend beyond romantic relationships to friendships and family relationships. Friends who give each other space for solitude often maintain longer-lasting and more resilient friendships. They don't burden each other with expectations of constant availability. They can pursue individual interests without guilt or fear of losing the friendship. This creates friendships between whole, independent people rather than dependent relationships built on constant mutual reassurance. In family relationships, particularly between parents and children, the capacity for healthy solitude becomes important at different developmental stages. Parents need time alone to restore themselves and maintain their adult identities beyond parenting. Children and adolescents need increasing amounts of solitary time as they develop independence and identity. Families that respect each member's need for solitude while also maintaining meaningful together time tend to function more harmoniously than those at either extreme. Solitude can also improve group dynamics in workplace or community settings. When group members have opportunities for solitary reflection and work, they return to collective efforts with fresh perspectives and renewed energy. Groups that allow for independent work time often achieve better outcomes than those requiring constant collaboration. The rhythm of coming together, working apart, and reconvening creates space for both individual contribution and collective synergy. Productivity and performance enhancement. The relationship between solitude and productivity defies simple characterization. In our culture of open office plans and constant collaboration, solitude might seem antithetical to getting things done. Yet research consistently shows that for many types of work, solitude dramatically enhances both productivity and the quality of output. Understanding when and how solitude boosts performance can help us work more effectively and sustainably. The concept of deep work, articulated by computer scientist and productivity researcher Cal Newport, captures something essential about productive solitude. Deep work refers to professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push cognitive capabilities to their limit. This kind of work creates new value, improves skills, and is hard to replicate. It stands in contrast to shallow work, logistical tasks, communications, and other activities that don't require intense focus and don't create much new value. Newport's research shows that deep work almost always requires solitude. The cognitive intensity it demands cannot coexist with the constant interruption that characterizes most social work environments. Studies of knowledge workers have found that the average person is interrupted every few minutes during the workday. Each interruption carries a cognitive cost. Not just the time of the interruption itself, but also the time required to return to the previous level of focus. Research by Gloria Mark and colleagues at the University of California found that it takes an average of 23 minutes to return to a task after an interruption. If interruptions come every few minutes, workers never achieve deep focus. They spend their days in a state of perpetual semi-attention, never fully engaging with complex problems or sustained thinking. Solitude eliminates this pattern of interruption. When we carve out periods of guaranteed uninterrupted time, shutting the door, silencing notifications, removing ourselves from spaces where others might approach, we create conditions for sustained focus. Research shows that even short periods of this kind of solitude, perhaps 90 minutes to 2 hours, can yield productivity gains that dwarf what most people accomplish during entire days of fractured attention. The quality of work produced in solitude also tends to be higher. Complex analysis, original thinking, careful writing, detailed problem solving. These activities benefit from the sustained attention that solitude allows. Studies comparing the output of people working in private offices versus open plans consistently show higher quality work from those with more acoustic and visual privacy. This isn't because collaboration is unimportant, but rather because different phases of work require different conditions. The generation and refinement of ideas often needs solitude, while evaluation and coordination may benefit from interaction. Research in cognitive psychology has identified several mechanisms through which solitude enhances cognitive performance. First, solitude reduces cognitive load, the amount of information the brain must process simultaneously. In social environments, we're constantly processing social information. Facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, social hierarchies, appropriate behavior. This processing consumes mental resources that become available for task-focused thinking when we're alone. Studies show measurable improvements in complex cognitive tasks when performed in solitude versus social settings. Second, solitude allows for what researchers call cognitive closure. Reaching definite conclusions about problems rather than leaving them perpetually open. In collaborative settings, discussions can continue indefinitely, with new perspectives constantly arriving. While this openness has value, it can prevent the decisive closure necessary for moving forward. Solitude creates space to bring analysis to conclusion, to commit to decisions, to achieve the kind of mental completion that allows progress. Third, solitude supports metacognition, thinking about thinking. Monitoring and adjusting our cognitive strategies, evaluating our understanding, recognizing when we're stuck and need to try different approaches. These metacognitive processes happen most effectively when we can give them full attention. In social settings, the forward momentum of interaction can prevent the kind of self-monitoring that leads to genuine understanding and effective problem-solving. Solitude creates space for this crucial metacognitive work. Research on expertise development shows that solitude plays a central role in acquiring high-level skills. Anders Ericsson's work on deliberate practice, the kind of focused, effortful practice that builds expertise, reveals that it almost always occurs in solitude. Whether musicians practicing difficult passages, athletes perfecting technique, or chess players studying game strategies, the deep concentration required for deliberate practice demands isolation from distraction. Studies of elite performers across domains show that they spend significantly more time in solitary practice than less accomplished peers in the same fields. The relationship between solitude and flow states extends to performance enhancement. Flow, that optimal state of consciousness where we feel and perform our best, occurs most readily during solitary work for most people. The conditions that support flow, clear goals, immediate feedback, balance between challenge and skill, are easier to achieve alone. In flow, productivity soars while effort paradoxically feels effortless. People in flow report that time seems to expand, allowing them to accomplish much more than usual. Protecting time for solitary flow states represents one of the highest leverage interventions for enhancing productivity. However, the productivity benefits of solitude depend critically on how we use the alone time. Simply being physically isolated while mentally distracted yields little benefit. True productive solitude requires deliberate practices, clear intentions for what we want to accomplish, removal of digital distractions, structured work sessions with defined starts and stops, and active engagement with challenging tasks rather than passive activity. Research shows that people who treat solitary work time with this kind of intentionality accomplish far more than those who work alone but allow constant digital interruption. The temporal pattern of solitary versus collaborative work also matters for productivity. Research suggests that optimal schedules often involve blocks of uninterrupted solitary time interspersed with shorter periods of collaborative interaction. Many knowledge workers find that protecting morning hours for solitary deep work, when cognitive resources are freshest, then engaging in collaborative activities in afternoon, maximizes both individual productivity and team effectiveness. The specific rhythm varies by person and task, but the principle of alternating rather than constant mixing seems broadly applicable. Research has also explored individual differences in how solitude affects productivity. People higher in trait conscientiousness, the personality dimension associated with self-discipline and achievement orientation, tend to use solitary time more productively than those lower in conscientiousness. Introverts often accomplish more during solitary work than during social work, while the pattern may reverse for extroverts. These differences suggest that optimal work arrangements might vary by individual, with some people needing more solitude for peak productivity and others benefiting from more social structure. The physical environment during productive solitude also influences outcomes. Research in environmental psychology shows that certain features enhance productive solitude. Adequate natural light, comfortable temperature, minimal noise intrusion, aesthetic appeal, and views of nature. Studies have found that workers in environments with these features accomplish more during solitary work sessions and report greater satisfaction with their work. The interaction between solitude and pleasant environment seems synergistic. Each enhances the other's benefits. Digital technology creates both opportunities and challenges for productive solitude. On one hand, it allows location-independent work, enabling people to find solitary spaces away from crowded offices. On the other hand, constant connectivity undermines the deep solitude that supports productivity. Research consistently shows that people who maintain strict boundaries around digital availability during work solitude, using apps to block distracting websites, putting phones in airplane mode, closing email and messaging applications, accomplish far more than those who allow constant digital accessibility. The relationship between solitude and decision-making represents another dimension of performance enhancement. Complex decisions with multiple variables and uncertain outcomes require careful thought that happens best in solitude. Research shows that people make higher quality decisions after spending time in solitary reflection than after only group discussion. This doesn't mean decisions should be entirely solitary. Diverse perspectives and devil's advocates serve important functions, but rather that the decision-maker needs protected time to think through implications and reach conclusions. Rest and recovery, essential components of sustained high performance, also require solitude. Research on rest shows that genuine recovery from intense cognitive work requires both physical relaxation and mental disengagement from work-related thoughts. This happens most effectively in solitude, away from work environments and work-related social interaction. Studies show that people who protect time for solitary rest, naps, meditation, walks in nature, or simply sitting quietly, maintain higher productivity levels over time than those who work constantly without genuine breaks. Emotional and mental health benefits. The connection between solitude and emotional well-being reveals itself through multiple pathways. In an era where mental health challenges have reached concerning levels in many societies, understanding how solitude can support emotional health becomes increasingly important. Research across psychology, neuroscience, and clinical practice has begun mapping these relationships with growing clarity. One of the most robust findings is that voluntary solitude in comfortable settings reduces physiological and psychological markers of stress. When we remove ourselves from social demands and settle into quiet, alone time, our nervous systems shift from sympathetic activation, the fight or flight response, toward parasympathetic activation associated with rest and restoration. Heart rate slows, blood pressure decreases, muscle tension eases, and stress hormone levels decline. Studies measuring cortisol, the primary stress hormone, show that it drops during periods of peaceful solitude, particularly when combined with restful activities like walking in nature, reading, or meditation. This stress reduction has downstream effects on emotional state. Chronic stress contributes to anxiety, irritability, emotional reactivity, and mood problems. By providing regular opportunities for nervous system downregulation, solitude helps prevent the accumulation of stress that leads to these emotional difficulties. Research shows that people who maintain regular solitude practices report lower anxiety levels and more stable moods than those who are constantly socially engaged with no time for restoration. The relationship between solitude and anxiety requires nuanced understanding. For some people, particularly those with social anxiety, being alone can feel more comfortable and less anxiety-provoking than being with others. Their baseline anxiety is lower in solitude. Research confirms that individuals with social anxiety often report peaceful solitude as their preferred and most comfortable state. However, for people with separation anxiety or those prone to catastrophic thinking, excessive solitude can actually increase anxiety. The key is finding the right balance for one's particular emotional patterns and needs. Solitude's role in emotional processing represents another mental health benefit. Throughout daily life, we experience numerous emotions, some pleasant, others difficult, that we don't fully process in the moment. Social situations often require emotional regulation for appropriate behavior, meaning we suppress or defer fully experiencing our feelings. Solitude provides time and space to feel emotions fully, understand their sources, and allow them to complete their natural course. Research in emotion regulation shows that people who regularly take time for solitary emotional processing experience less emotional accumulation and fewer episodes of overwhelming emotion. This processing function appears particularly important for difficult emotions. When we experience loss, disappointment, fear, or anger, we often need time alone to fully feel and integrate these experiences. While social support matters enormously during difficult times, research shows that people also need solitary time to make personal meaning from challenges. Studies of people coping with major stressors show that those who balance social support with solitary reflection tend to process difficulties more completely and emerge with greater psychological growth than those who seek constant social support without time for private processing. The concept of emotional granularity, the ability to distinguish between different emotional states with precision, develops through reflective solitude. Instead of experiencing emotions in broad categories like bad or upset, emotionally granular people can identify specific emotions: frustration versus disappointment, anxiety versus fear, melancholy versus depression. Research shows that higher emotional granularity correlates with better emotional regulation and mental health outcomes. Solitude provides the quiet necessary for developing this discrimination, for sitting with feelings long enough to understand their specific qualities and sources. Solitude also supports what researchers call emotion coherence, alignment between physiological emotional responses, subjective emotional feelings, and behavioral expression of emotion. Sometimes these components become misaligned. Our body responds with anger, while our mind tries to suppress it, and our behavior appears calm. This incoherence creates psychological tension and predicts poorer mental health outcomes. Solitary reflection allows us to notice and address these misalignments, bringing our emotional systems back into coherent functioning. Research on rumination reveals important distinctions about the quality of solitary time and mental health. Rumination, repetitive, negative, self-focused thought, often occurs during solitude and is strongly associated with depression and anxiety. However, rumination differs critically from constructive self-reflection. Rumination involves passively dwelling on problems without progress toward understanding or solutions. Reflection involves actively examining experiences, considering multiple perspectives, and working toward insight. Studies show that people who engage in reflective solitude report mental health benefits, while those who ruminate during alone time experience worsening mood and increased anxiety. The capacity to distinguish between rumination and reflection, and to shift from one to the other, represents an important mental health skill. Solitude itself is neutral. It can host either destructive rumination or constructive reflection. Practices that structure solitary time, like journaling, meditation, or specific reflection exercises, can help prevent the slide into rumination. Research shows that people who use structured approaches to solitary reflection gain mental health benefits while avoiding rumination's pitfalls. Solitude's relationship with depression is complex. Social isolation and loneliness are risk factors for depression, yet many people with depression also need solitary time for recovery. The key distinction appears to be choice and quality. Forced isolation that leaves people feeling lonely and disconnected worsens depression. Voluntary solitude that feels peaceful and restorative can support recovery. Studies of people recovering from depression show that as they improve, many report rediscovering the ability to enjoy alone time, suggesting that healthy solitude represents a marker of recovery. Research has also explored solitude's role in preventing emotional burnout, particularly relevant for people in emotionally demanding roles like healthcare, teaching, or caregiving. These roles involve constant emotional labor, managing one's own emotions while responding to others' emotional needs. Without regular opportunities for solitary restoration, emotional exhaustion accumulates. Studies show that people in high-emotion labor professions who maintain regular solitude practices experience less burnout and maintain their effectiveness longer than those without such practices. The concept of self-soothing, the ability to comfort and calm oneself without external assistance, develops partly through solitary practice. Children initially depend on caregivers for emotional regulation, but gradually internalize the capacity to regulate their own emotional states. Adults who never develop robust self-soothing capacities remain dependent on others for emotional stability, creating relationship strain and vulnerability during periods of necessary aloneness. Research shows that people who spend regular time in peaceful solitude develop stronger self-soothing abilities, making them more emotionally resilient and less vulnerable to relationship disruptions. Solitude also provides space for practices proven to support mental health. Meditation, which research consistently shows reduces anxiety and depression while enhancing well-being, typically occurs in solitude. Journaling, another practice with demonstrated mental health benefits, requires quiet privacy. Creative expression through art, music, or writing, all shown to support emotional health, often happens best alone. In this sense, solitude functions as a container for other mental health supporting activities. The relationship between solitude and meaning-making represents another mental health dimension. Humans are meaning-seeking creatures who need to understand their experiences as part of coherent life narratives. This meaning-making work, essential for psychological well-being, requires reflective time that solitude provides. Research shows that people who can construct meaningful narratives from their experiences, including difficult ones, maintain better mental health than those whose experiences remain fragmented and confusing. Solitude offers space for the narrative work that creates meaning. Research during the pandemic lockdowns provided unique insights into solitude and mental health. While isolation and loneliness increased mental health problems for many people, some individuals reported that enforced alone time provided unexpected mental health benefits. Those who could frame their situation as voluntary solitude rather than forced isolation, who had comfortable living spaces, and who used solitary time for constructive activities reported lower anxiety and sometimes improved mood. This suggests that even challenging circumstances can offer mental health benefits through solitude when approached with certain mindsets and practices. Practical applications and modern life. The research is clear. The neuroscience is compelling. The historical evidence speaks volumes. But perhaps you're sitting there, nodding along, thinking, that's all well and good. But how exactly do I actually implement solitude into my already overflowing life? This is where theory meets the messy, complicated reality of modern existence, where calendars overflow with commitments, where smartphones ping every few minutes, where the very notion of being unreachable feels almost revolutionary, perhaps even irresponsible. Let's start with the most pressing challenge facing anyone who wants to embrace solitude in today's world: the tyranny of the busy schedule. According to research from Georgetown University, knowledge workers spend an average of only 2.8 hours per day on truly focused work. The rest gets fragmented into what computer science professor Cal Newport calls shallow work, that endless carousel of emails, meetings, instant messages, and logistical tasks that create the illusion of productivity while leaving us mentally exhausted and creatively depleted. The architecture of modern work actively conspires against the kind of sustained, uninterrupted concentration that solitude enables. Open office plans, where every conversation becomes ambient noise. Collaboration tools like Slack, where the expectation of immediate response creates what researchers call continuous partial attention. Virtual meetings that stack back to back, leaving no breathing room between one commitment and the next. But here's what the research from the University of Reading reveals. You don't need hours of uninterrupted solitude to reap its benefits. Their 21-day diary study, which tracked 178 adults, found that even small pockets of chosen alone time throughout the day led to decreased stress and increased feelings of autonomy. The key word here is chosen. When participants experience solitude because they actively decided to step away rather than because circumstances forced isolation upon them, the benefits multiplied. Think about what this means practically. It means that 15-minute walk you take alone during your lunch break, where you deliberately leave your phone behind or at least silence notifications, can serve as a genuine restorative practice. Research from Stanford University found that walking, even indoors, boosts creative output by up to 60%. When you combine that movement with intentional solitude, you're essentially giving your brain permission to shift into what neuroscientists call the default mode network, that state where your mind wanders freely, making unexpected connections, processing experiences, solving problems that your conscious mind has been wrestling with unsuccessfully. For those working from home or in hybrid environments, the challenge looks different but no less daunting. The boundaries between work and personal life blur until they're nearly indistinguishable. You might technically be alone physically, but are you truly experiencing solitude when you're switching between Zoom calls, responding to messages, and fielding interruptions from family members? A study published in a 2025 article exploring workplace solitude found that intentional alone time, what they called deep work sessions, supports not just focus and complex problem solving, but also creative breakthroughs. The most successful remote workers aren't those who stay perpetually available. They're the ones who establish what Newport calls fixed schedule productivity, creating non-negotiable blocks of time where they're genuinely unreachable. Consider implementing what Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates calls think weeks. Though perhaps on a more modest scale, Gates famously retreats to a cabin twice yearly, bringing nothing but papers to read and think about, completely disconnecting from email, phone calls, and internet access. While most of us can't disappear for a week, we can adapt this principle. What if you designated every Saturday morning as your personal think time? Just 2 hours where you're not catching up on work, not running errands, not scrolling social media. 2 hours to sit with your own thoughts, to read something challenging, to work on that creative project you keep saying you don't have time for. Research from the Solitude Lab at Durham University emphasizes that the quality of your solitude matters more than the quantity, and that even brief, intentional periods of being alone can be profoundly restorative. Now let's address the elephant in the room: digital technology. A comprehensive review published in early 2025 found that people who completed a 2-week social media detox showed improvements in smartphone addiction, sleep quality, life satisfaction, stress levels, perceived wellness, and relationship quality. The researchers discovered something fascinating. Participants found the digital detox less challenging than they anticipated, with many reporting feelings of relief and pleasure. After the detox period, 91% of participants showed improvement in at least one major outcome related to well-being, attention, or mental health. The improvements weren't marginal either. They were comparable to the effects seen with cognitive behavioral therapy and larger than typical antidepressant effects in clinical trials. But here's the practical reality. Most of us can't abandon our devices completely. They're how we work, how we stay connected with loved ones, how we navigate the world. The goal isn't digital monasticism. It's intentional use. Consider creating what psychologist Kirai Pruitt calls technology-free zones in your life. Maybe your bedroom becomes a phone-free space after 9 p.m., giving your brain that crucial hour before sleep to wind down naturally without the blue light that tricks your circadian rhythms into thinking it's still daytime. Maybe Sunday afternoons become screen-free time for your whole household. Maybe you delete social media apps from your phone while keeping them accessible on your computer, adding just enough friction to make mindless scrolling less automatic. The workplace presents its own unique challenges when it comes to implementing solitude. Research indicates that interruptions can cost upwards of 23 minutes of refocusing time. When you check your phone twice in an hour, you've lost 2/3 of your potential focus time. Yet modern workplace culture often treats constant availability as a virtue, even a requirement. Here's where you need to become what one researcher called strategically unavailable. This might mean blocking out certain hours on your calendar for what you label deep work, treating them with the same respect you'd give an important meeting. It might mean working with your manager to establish a shallow to deep ratio, an agreed-upon proportion of your workweek dedicated to focused, cognitively demanding tasks versus routine logistical work. Some organizations are recognizing solitude's value and building it into their culture. Companies are experimenting with quiet hours, designated periods where meetings aren't scheduled and employees aren't expected to respond to non-urgent communications. They're creating dedicated quiet spaces separate from open office areas, acknowledging that different tasks require different environments. If your workplace hasn't implemented such measures, you can still carve out your own pockets of productive solitude. Arrive an hour early when the office is still quiet. Stay an hour late after others have left. Find an unused conference room or quiet corner. Use noise-canceling headphones not just to block sound but to signal to colleagues that you're in focused work mode. For parents, implementing solitude can feel particularly challenging, perhaps even guilt-inducing. Our culture sends constant messages that good parenting means perpetual availability, constant engagement, filling every moment of our children's lives with structured activities and attentive interaction. But research from the University of Colorado found that children who experience more unstructured, self-directed time show stronger executive functioning, the ability to plan, focus, and solve problems independently. When you model healthy solitude, when your children see you reading quietly, working on a hobby, or simply sitting peacefully, you're teaching them that being alone isn't something to fear or avoid but a normal, necessary part of a balanced life. This might look like establishing a family quiet hour, where everyone engages in their own solo activity in different parts of the house. Or creating a morning ritual where the first 30 minutes after waking belong to you alone, before the chaos of breakfast and school preparation begins. It might mean being honest with your children. I need some time alone to recharge. I'll be available in an hour. Research shows that children adapt to such boundaries remarkably well, and that having parents who take care of their own needs through practices like solitude actually contributes to healthier family dynamics. The guilt that many people feel about wanting time alone deserves its own consideration, particularly for those who identify as caregivers, whether of children, aging parents, or partners, the desire for solitude can feel selfish, even wrong. But here's what research from multiple studies makes abundantly clear. Solitude isn't selfish. It's essential maintenance. Think of it like charging your phone. You don't feel guilty about plugging in your device when the battery runs low. You understand it as necessary for continued function. Your need for alone time operates on the same principle. When you allow yourself regular periods of solitude, you return to your relationships and responsibilities with renewed energy, greater patience, clearer thinking, and enhanced emotional regulation. What does overcoming this guilt actually look like in practice? It starts with reframing. Instead of thinking, "I'm abandoning my responsibilities," try, "I'm preparing myself to meet my responsibilities more effectively." Instead of, "I'm being antisocial," consider, "I'm honoring my need for balance." Language matters. Research from 2024 found that how we describe alone time significantly impacts its benefits. When participants framed their solitude positively, calling it me time or focused work, their well-being improved. When they used negative framing, thinking of it as isolation or abandonment, the benefits diminished. Practically, this might mean scheduling your solitude as you would any other important commitment. Put it in your calendar. Treat it as non-negotiable. Communicate clearly with family members or roommates about your needs, explaining not just that you need time alone, but why it matters to you and, ultimately, to your relationships with them. Most people respond more positively to, "I want to be my best self for our time together," than to what might feel like rejection. Consider too the venues for your solitude. They don't all need to involve sitting alone in a room. Some people find profound solitude in nature, where the absence of human voices and digital distractions creates space for internal quieting. Research consistently shows that time in natural settings, even urban parks, provides restorative benefits beyond those of indoor solitude. Others discover solitude in motion through solo running, cycling, or swimming, where the rhythm of physical activity creates a meditative state. Still others find it in creative pursuits, those periods of flow when you're so absorbed in painting, writing, woodworking, or music that hours pass unnoticed. The point isn't to force yourself into someone else's version of productive solitude. It's to discover what forms of being alone actually nourish you, what activities or non-activities allow your particular nervous system to settle and your particular mind to roam freely. Experiment. Try different approaches. Pay attention to how you feel not just during your alone time, but in the hours and days afterward. Does a solitary morning walk leave you feeling centered? Does an hour of uninterrupted reading before bed improve your sleep? Does time spent working on a personal project, with no one watching or evaluating, rekindle some spark that daily life had dimmed? As we arrive at the end of this exploration, let's return to where we began. That fundamental human experience of being alone. We've journeyed through the neuroscience, discovering how solitude activates the brain's default mode network, strengthening memory, enhancing creativity, and improving emotional regulation. We've examined the research on stress reduction, learning how even brief periods of chosen alone time can lower anxiety and increase feelings of autonomy and freedom. We've explored the connection between solitude and creativity, understanding why history's greatest thinkers, from Isaac Newton to Virginia Woolf, zealously protected their time alone. But perhaps most importantly, We've confronted the cultural narrative that casts being alone as something to fear, something that signals failure or inadequacy. In a world that constantly pushes connection and constant availability, that measures success partly by how busy we are and how many people want our time, choosing solitude becomes an act of quiet rebellion. It becomes a way of saying, my internal life matters. My thoughts deserve space to develop without constant external input. The person I am when no one's watching is worth getting to know. The research we've examined paints a clear picture. Solitude, when chosen rather than imposed, when balanced with meaningful social connection rather than replacing it entirely, offers profound benefits to our cognitive functioning, our emotional well-being, our creative capacity, and ultimately our ability to show up as our best selves in our relationships and work. But knowing this intellectually and actually implementing it in your life are two very different things. So here's my invitation to you, listening to this right now, perhaps in your own moment of solitude. Start small. Don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight. Pick one thing. Maybe it's a 10-minute walk without your phone each morning. Maybe it's an hour on Sunday afternoon that belongs only to you. Maybe it's finally setting up that workspace where you can close the door and be genuinely unavailable for focused work. Whatever you choose, approach it with intention and self-compassion. Some days, your solitude practice will feel effortless and restorative. Other days, it will feel uncomfortable, even boring, especially if you're not accustomed to being alone with your thoughts. That discomfort is normal. It's your mind adjusting to the absence of constant stimulation, learning to entertain itself, rediscovering its natural rhythm. Pay attention to the resistance you encounter, both internal and external. Notice the voice that says you're wasting time, that you should be doing something productive, that you're being selfish. Recognize that voice as the internalized pressure of a culture that profits from your constant activity and availability. Notice the external resistance too, the people who might not immediately understand your need for alone time, the workplace structures that reward constant accessibility. These obstacles aren't signs that you're doing something wrong. They're signs that you're doing something necessary and countercultural. Remember, too, that implementing solitude isn't about becoming a hermit or rejecting human connection. The research consistently shows that the healthiest outcomes come from balancing meaningful social time with chosen solitude. You're not choosing between being alone and being with others. You're creating a rhythm that honors both needs. And here's what makes this sustainable. When you give yourself adequate time for solitude, your social time actually improves. You show up more present, less depleted, more genuinely engaged. Your relationships deepen because you're bringing your whole self to them rather than the exhausted, scattered version that results from never pressing pause. If you found value in this exploration of solitude's upsides, I'd be grateful if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to Deep Science Sleep. Your support helps us continue creating these long-form, research-based explorations of topics that matter to human well-being. Share this with someone who might need permission to embrace their need for alone time, whether that's a fellow introvert who feels guilty about not being more social, a parent who's forgotten what it feels like to have time to themselves, or a colleague drowning in the shallow work of constant availability. The invitation that solitude extends isn't complicated, but it is profound. To slow down enough to hear your own thoughts, to value your internal experience as much as external validation, to give yourself the gift of uninterrupted time to think, feel, create, or simply be. In a world that constantly demands your attention, that feeds on your distraction, that wants you always responsive and available, claiming space for solitude becomes a radical act of self-care and self-knowledge. So as you move forward from here, carry this understanding with you. Being alone isn't something to endure or overcome. It's a resource to cultivate, a practice to develop, a skill to hone. Your relationship with solitude will be uniquely yours, shaped by your personality, your circumstances, your needs and preferences. There's no single right way to do this. There's only your way, discovered through patient experimentation and honest self-reflection. The research gives us permission. The neuroscience provides explanation. But the practice, the actual implementation of solitude in your daily life, that's up to you. And it starts not with some grand transformation, but with a simple decision. To value your need for alone time, to protect it, to see it not as a luxury but as a fundamental human need, as essential to your well-being as food, sleep, and connection. Thank you for spending this time alone with me, exploring these ideas together. May you find your own perfect balance between solitude and connection, between being alone and being together, between the rich internal world of your own thoughts and the equally valuable external world of shared experience. Until next time, I wish you peace, curiosity, and the courage to claim the solitude you need.